Welcome back to Talk of the Town. I'm Doug Raymond, sitting in for Henry Hinton on WTIB 103.7 and Cable Channel 7. Appreciate you spending your Friday morning with us. And as you're heading into work, you want that Friday weather forecast today, mostly sunny, a high of 83. Tonight, those clouds are going to come in, lows down to about 65. And then the weekend forecast, unfortunately, a little bit of rain there, about a 40% chance of thunderstorms, high around 85 Saturday, and a low Saturday night around 57. And then Sunday, a little more clouds than sun, highs in the low 70s, lows in the upper 50s. And as promised, we are very pleased to have on our phone line Mr. Tom Campbell. He is the host, moderator, executive producer, and well, I don't know. I guess I could call him a North Carolina institution when it comes to politics. NC Spin can be seen right here on Cable Channel 7 and also heard on WTIB throughout the weekend. So welcome, Tom. Thanks for spending some time with us this morning.
Good morning, Doug. How are you?
I'm doing great. And we've been talking a little bit about the issues of the day, as you do on NC Spin. Can you give us a little bit of a preview on if we tune in either on television or on radio this weekend, what we might be seeing and hearing on the Spin?
Well, obviously, the big issue and the one that's causing the most talk right now are a couple of Supreme Court decisions. The first, of course, involves same-sex marriages. And I think the fact that the Supreme Court, I started to say ruled, they didn't really rule, they just confirmed or affirmed the appellate court rulings, making same-sex marriages or denying the state's same-sex marriage laws in many states. That's a monumental decision, and I think that today we're going to see Judge William Osteen, who is going to probably, he's already lifted the stay on same-sex marriages in North Carolina. I think he's probably going to go ahead and possibly approve them, although House Speaker Tom Tillis and Senate President Pro Tem Phil Berger are trying to intervene on behalf of the state. It looks like this argument is over with. I think that the discussion around the table with our panel, and John Hood, I think, said it probably best, this one is over. Let's move on to something else.
Well, let me ask you, Tom, because one of the interesting things about having you on with us is in your role in NC Spin, you really serve more as a moderator, and you're kind of guiding the discussion and making sure it doesn't get out of hand in some cases. But you know, right now you've got the opportunity because you've watched politics for years. You've got a lot of insight. I made the comment. I got a couple phone calls this week from legislators that I knew that I think they had the same feeling that there may be not a lot that can be done about this, but their question was, Doug, you kind of have a read on people. What do you think the reaction was going to be? And my answer was, I think it's how the media is going to cover it and how really, and I'm sorry if I'm being politically incorrect and they're so careful about what terms we use, the gay and lesbian community handles this. I think if it's people going quietly to the courthouse to get the documentation and have the process they need to have the rights they think they deserve, I think it may not be as big of outcry. And I used the example of the Missouri football player who I think initially most people said, hey, he's a football player. If he can do the job, who cares if he's gay? But on draft day, when he chose to have a long, passionate kiss with his boyfriend in front of national television, I think sentiment changed. Do you think the way the media covers this is going to have a big effect if indeed it's what you and apparently your panelists said, that the end of this, as far as what the court ruling is a done deal? But as far as public opinion, do you think the way it's covered and the way it's handled is going to have a huge effect on a public opinion?
Well, I think there's no question about the fact that media coverage does have an influence on what people think. But I think on this particular issue, it really doesn't make that much difference. I think people made their decisions about whether they favor this issue or whether they don't favor this issue. You asked the question that I think is an important question, and that is, what is the ongoing, continuing effect of this ruling going to be? And I would submit to you that it's going to reverberate throughout our culture for several years to come. In the first place, I think we'll see a little bit of a rush from the same-sex couples wanting to get marriage certificates and get married. But the statistics in other states that have allowed this show that whereas there is an initial push, it dies down very quickly, and it doesn't become a major burden so far as registers of deeds offices or whatever are concerned. But I think that there are more significant issues that need to be addressed. One is this is going to greatly affect businesses all over the country and all over our state. Think about the fact that, first of all, pension plans are going to need to be changed to reflect the fact that domestic partners, same-sex marriage couples, need to be included in pension plans.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in some instances, the plan itself is going to need to be changed, but in many instances, it already allows for that provision. But there's going to have to be administrative paperwork as people come in and say, okay, I want to change the beneficiaries on my pension plan. I think you're going to see this particularly notable on health insurance plans, because most health insurance plans do not allow for domestic partners or same-sex marriage couples with dependents and so forth like that. So I think that you're going to see a revamping in a lot of insurance coverage that takes place, health insurance coverage that takes place. And I think a lot of employers, particularly small businesses, are going to be forced to make decisions. I mean, Obamacare is going to force all but the smallest of employers to carry health insurance or to provide health insurance as a benefit for their employees. However, I do think that it's going to cause businesses to look at, I mean, just common sense says, okay, we're adding a lot more people onto dependent coverage, and more people means the insurance premiums have got to go up. That's common sense.
Right.
So it's going to cost businesses more if they are footing the bill for the cost of this insurance, or even if they're paying half of it. It's
Right.
going to cost a business more. So I think you're going to see that. I think you're going to see a lot of discussion and consideration so far as religious groups are concerned. Take, for instance, as you know, Lib is a pastor in the United Methodist Church. The provisions of the United Methodist Church, the discipline says they can't marry same-sex couples. We might remember the instance where a pastor married his gay son and was defrocked, thrown out of the church, later reinstated, but nonetheless. So churches are going to have to really sit down and give some honest thought to, now that this is going to be the law of the land, how are they going to deal with this? Are they going to allow avowed gay and lesbian couples as full members? Or are they going to perform ceremonies? Are they going to allow clergy persons who are gay and lesbian? The Episcopal Church has already made their declaration about this and said that they would, but that caused a real schism in the church and frankly, split them off, and the Anglican Church became more and more popular among the more conservative elements of the faith. So I think you're going to really see some big discussions that are going to be taking place, not whether the law is legal or not, but how do we adjust to this? How do we adapt to this? What are we going to do with this now that it's legal?
Those are all excellent points, and as we talk about in certain topics, this one has a lot of legs. It can go a lot of different directions, and you've mentioned just two of them there, and there's a lot more.
No question.
Obviously, most of you recognize that voice. It's Tom Campbell from NC Spin. We're going to take a commercial break and then come back with Tom. And for those who may not be blessed to know, that Lib he mentioned was his lovely wife, Lib, who is a Methodist minister, ordained Methodist minister. And if you're like most people, like me, meeting her in 5 minutes, she instantly becomes one of your favorite people. She is
well, you know, I overmarried myself.
Yes, I didn't want to say that. You said it, not me. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back with more with Tom Campbell. You're listening to WTIB 103.7 FM Talk of the Town. Doug Raymond sitting in for Henry Hinton right here on Cable Channel 7. Welcome back to Talk of the Town. I'm Doug Raymond sitting in for Henry Hinton, and appreciate the opportunity to fill the Big Hen's chair right here on the Friday morning edition of Talk of the Town. We're really pleased to have on the phone line with us Tom Campbell, the executive producer and host of NC Spin and moderator. And one of the reasons why I like having him on when I'm in is Tom really does have a wealth of information and just interesting perspective on politics. And he kind of puts that in the back seat a little bit when he moderates the show. So I wanted to give him an opportunity, especially with so much in the news. Tom, real quickly before we get back to the news of the day, give the folks a little preview who your panelists are this week on the show that, once again, can be seen on cable channel 7 and heard here on WTIB throughout the weekend.
Gene, this week, in addition to John Hood from the John Locke Foundation and Chris Fitzsimon from NC Policy Watch, who are our two anchor panelists, we have Peg O'Connell, who is a lobbyist and political analyst and longtime observer of state politics. He really specializes in health care and in issues that are related to that.
And as sharp as a tack.
Yes, she is. And then former Representative Gene Arnold from Rocky Mount, who is a good voice. You and Gene are my two voices from Eastern Carolina, and that's an important market to us, and we want to hear them as frequently as we can. So Gene's a good voice, former legislator, and stays up to date on issues. So those are the two guest panelists this week. Great.
Now, Tom, I want to mention to you, in the first hour, we obviously were talking about the gay marriage issue, and I had two callers that expressed similar sentiments. And it was that, hey, we went to the polls and we voted. And for North Carolina, which tends to be a state where it's tough to get something overwhelming, I think you could use the word overwhelmingly past the gay marriage amendment, banning same-sex marriages in North Carolina. And they said, hey, why is it that we can go and vote for something and then somebody puts on a black robe and they overturn it? Do you think that there's any long-term kind of pushback from voters, and they say, what's the use if we feel like that some judge, be it liberal or conservative, depending on which bench you go to, is going to overturn it? Do you have any thoughts on whether that might have some repercussions?
Yeah, I do. First of all, let's comment on the overwhelming majority. Tom Tillis spoke about it Tuesday night in the debate and said 60% of the people in North Carolina favored it. That's not quite accurate. What the accurate statement is, 60% of the people who voted in the May primary in 2012.
Yeah.
Voted in favor of it.
That's a good point, and that was the reason it was put in the primary.
There was a very strong majority of those people who were actually voting, but we also know that primary votes are much smaller than general election votes, particularly in 2012. So, at any rate, let's put that in context. The second part of it, though, is I do think there is some concern about that, and I think you're going to hear throughout the nation, not just in North Carolina. I think you're going to hear discussions about states' rights, because the 10th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which, by the way, is there primarily because North Carolina held out and wouldn't ratify the U.S. Constitution back in the late 1700s until they added that Bill of Rights, those amendments. 10th Amendment says that the federal government has only those powers that the states expressly give them. And I think a good case can be made is the states did not give the federal government the authority to determine who is involved in a marriage. So I think you're going to see that raise its head. I think you're particularly from the far right, you're going to hear a hue and cry about that. Candidly, I'm not sure I think it's going to do a heck of a lot of good. It's like Tillis and Berger's protest. I think this is more for show than it is anything else. Mm-hmm. An appeal's not going to do any good. I think the larger question here, Doug, and this is a question that I've written my column on this week, which, if I can plug it, will be in the Daily Reflector tomorrow, is the increasing role and importance of the courts in the land. And in essence, they are becoming, regardless of what side of the aisle you sit on, they are becoming de facto legislators.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're echoing some sentiments from the first hour. So I think that not only, I think that message is going, but the frustration once again, and I felt bad because people were calling in saying, Doug, what can we do? As a pragmatist, there isn't a lot you can do. You got to know what judges you're voting for, but besides that, I mean, In that, I don't
Well,
want you to
many
give
of
it
these
away.
judges we don't vote for. I mean, the appellate judges on a federal level, we don't vote for.
Right.
So, I mean,
Sure.
some of them have to be confirmed by the U.S. Senate, obviously, but it's not a case where we have any control over that whatsoever. We do in North Carolina, candidly, and we can make a decision on that. But the political campaign laws are such you don't know what a judge's ruling on same-sex marriage opinion is on same-sex marriage because they're not allowed to talk about it during campaign.
That's a good point. Tom, we got just a couple minutes left, and I want to get you a chance to talk. Another one of the, and it dovetails nicely because you're still talking about court decisions, is pertaining to voter law. And I mean, we're awful close to an election here to be going back and forth on what the law is, but it happened again this week. Talk a little bit about that, and without giving away anything, what were your panelists? Just some of the generic opinions that you can give me, what their opinions were about this last segment.
I think there was a consensus on the panel that all of this is going to create confusion in the minds of the voters. And whenever there is confusion, it usually acts to depress voter turnout. And I think that the larger issue here is going to be we won't know as a result of the turnout on November 4th, we won't know whether a depressed turnout was the result of confusion over the voting law or whether the new 2013 voting laws actually suppressed the votes of people. And so that's going to create even more controversy in months ahead.
Finally, I'd be remiss. I know that this may not have been covered on the show, but we're also, last night we saw the last debate between Tillis and Hagan. And once again, I'm going to take advantage of you being on here and not wearing the moderator hat. We're in the short rows, as we say in North Carolina here. I mean, give me your analysis or gut feeling, whichever you feel comfortable doing, on this race that the whole country is watching, and we're going to get to decide.
Well, I think that I did not see the Wilmington debate. I have to tell you that. It was not aired up here in the Raleigh-Durham market. So
right.
I didn't see that one. I did see the one Tuesday night. I think in both instances you'd have to say, I think Tillis probably had the advantage in the first debate. I think Hagan probably had a little bit of one in the second debate. I think at the end of the debates, just like with the end of the race, it's basically a tie. And whenever there's a tie, the incumbent wins, as you well know. So I think the real truth of the matter here is that voters have not been able to really distinguish that much difference between the candidates. Yes, one's a Democrat and the other one's a Republican, and one claims to be a moderate and one claims to be a conservative. But I don't think they've really had – I don't think either one of them have run particularly good campaigns. And if I'm honest about it, and I'll share this with you, and I don't normally, as you say,
we're up
share
against
my opinion.
Sure.
I don't particularly like either one of them.
That's why I had you on. There's my money line, Tom. Thank you so much for spending some time.
I think we can do better.
Well, Tom, thanks again for being with us and your opinions. And once again, Tom Campbell from NC Spin.